nabasalibam umama no Putin no sisi no gaga andisozenda koshwa no bakujani.
March the 8th was International Women's Day. To mark the occasion, Forbes Women Africa teamed up with MTN to host the 2017 Leading Women's Summit. This followed on the first successful summit presented last year. The theme this year was Disrupting the Norm. The proceedings were opened by the ABN Group's Managing Director, Roberta Naicker.
We as women are enjoying the progress made over the past 100 years by women who have fought for us, fought for our voting rights and for equal pay for equal work. Yet it is said by the World Economic Forum that it will take the world another century to be fully gender equal. We have certainly come a long way, but we are clearly not where we need to be. We are still to achieve economic parity and political prowess, as the recent US elections proved. What needs to be said is that today, more than half of the world's population is female, yet progress for women is still rife with challenges. This is why we are here today, to continue to discourse on diversity, inclusion, and transformation. And this is a true essence of Forbes Women Africa. It traces the evolution of women on the continent, recording the positive stories of not just business tycoons, but trailblazers in every sphere. What brings us together today as women in this room, drawn from different sectors, is to continue the narrative and draw on our strengths as collaborators and ethical change makers. We need to join hands, mentors with mentees, role models with entrepreneurs and leaders. We have the task of not just being daughters, wives, mothers, professionals, and even disruptors, but also champions for the women around us.
The topic for the first panel discussion of the day was the new lexicon, A for AI or artificial intelligence, B for business, C for C-suite, and D for disruption.
I'd like to believe that the innovators are taking the lead. So if I had to talk about what we view the opportunities as being, is that we're all about digital life. So there's going to be instances where there's going to be a requirement from customers for a particular type of service, and we need to be adaptable and innovate to deliver against those requirements. I think more than often, it's going to be a situation where an innovator sees an opportunity and says, how do I actually go out there and supplement someone's digital life? Because I think ultimately in an environment of AI, it's about making life better, and it's about ensuring a seamless engagement. So you just want to get on and do what it is you do, and you want to use the least effort to achieve it. You want it to be simple, you want it to be convenient, you want it to be affordable. And so from a technology point of view and a digital engagement point of view, I think the role from an innovation side of things is essentially to ensure that you're reading the market appropriately and understanding where you can actually have a fundamental purpose in people's lives and deliver.
Let's explore that a lot further, especially given the different sectors that each of you represent, because it's always viewed as this threat to jobs. I've been told that maybe in the media there might not be a purpose for me anymore to read news and provide business updates, but hopefully my job is still secure. But what kind of skill sets are we looking for in the future, from a telecoms perspective, from a financial services perspective, and from your insurance background? Bernice?
The changes in terms of the way customers engage, they are going to want to be able to not hold on essentially for a long time. They want to be able to be serviced in times and at places at the frequency that they're expecting or they're demanding. So the nature of work will change fundamentally, and I think we will move more dramatically from being businesses that are defined by our products to businesses that are being defined by the quality of the service that we deliver, that we wrap around the products that we deliver every day.
And isn't that a new trend? Because so often when we talk about customer experience, it's always interpersonal. It's always how I look at you, how I greet you, do I acknowledge your presence, how do I interact with you, do I make you feel comfortable? And now that we have artificial intelligence doing that, that's another element to this conversation.
there's a view that you'll have mechanical learning having the same capability as the human brain by 2023. What form that takes, we don't know. But the reality is that there's no reason why artificial intelligence is as soft and emotional and engaging as you and I might be in a conversation. They may not be face to face, but in the different vehicles for interaction.
Dali, let's come to you.
Just maybe to add to that issue about what kind of competencies and skills are we going to need in the future. Historically, businesses were built for stability. I think in this new world, businesses need to be structured for change. And the benefit of the disruptive technologies that have been around is that businesses no longer have to have all of that competency and skill within the organization. Businesses can leverage off their clients, off their suppliers, off their competitors in order to be able to adapt and operate in this new changing environment. So businesses of the future must be built to change. That's the competency that's going to be required.
I think to link to that, either you are the platform in the ecosystem or you use the platform. So it's one of two. And for us, the AI or the automated intelligence or artificial intelligence has been about it being a co-worker, so part of the workforce to some degree. And in that structure, there are interesting concepts, accentually. So 43% of the workforce is likely to be freelance in 2020. In 2015, majority of the workforce will be millennials. In 2025, 76% of the workforce will be millennials. My sons, who were born in 2000, did tell me they don't have to go to university based on statistically the fact that the workforce, 60% in 2020 will only be 20 and not have studied a 3-year degree. So I think the aptitude to learn on the job, to fail and fail forward, be iterative, is quite key. I talked to that agility, the co-worker working with intelligence, and the fact that the roles will be substantially different in the sense that it's not necessarily the role you do in a value chain, but possibly project-based. So that comes back to then the freelance structure. So when we do campaigns, we suddenly have a second off-site call center that drives that campaign, but they don't work with us permanently. You wouldn't feel that difference as a customer or as a client, but they are there literally as a liquid workforce to step in when we need it. So I think the attributes around agility, work where you play, stay, pray, I think is quite critical. And that people together, it's not an and or, it's not artificial intelligence or actually a person, it's both. Because you've got the IQ, the learning algorithms, and then you've got the EQ, which is the combination of the two. And I suppose to talk to your thing, what does that change? In some of our roles, we're looking at ecosystem architects. So they look more critically at alliances, partners, strategics, or strategic spaces. No longer, and I've grown up in the banking industry and insurance, do we build it all ourselves? So that's potentially a new role. Actuaries may become customer service orientated roles around how you price for future events, not based on historical data. And I think accountants and bookkeepers become more about predictive capability, where we forecast what may go wrong or leverage risk and opportunity to spot something different in regulation. So I think the roles will evolve. I'm not sure how ready every organization is to see that evolution happen with its people. So how do you make sure the people keep up with that?
Exactly.
And so training can't be ad hoc. You need to learn every single day.
As technological changes happen on a daily basis, it has become essential for business to be ready for it and to embrace change.
It's fundamental for many reasons. Reason number one is we have a strong economic business case that tells us that if we rebalance the equation on the gender gap issue, we're going to have great return on investment. It's important to create an environment where equal opportunities are real, and then encourage more presence of women in the workforce.
And what is GE doing specifically to bring more women in the workforce?
Oh, we have taken some bold actions, and we have recently launched a new plan called Balance the Equation. And we took the commitment of, by 2020, having 20,000 women in technology roles in the company. And also another good faith goal of having 50-50 representation in our leadership programs, the technical leadership program. We've already done it with our engineering program, with tremendous result. The average GPA of our Edison engineers has increased because of the 50-50 equation. We want to do it with all the others.
So why do you think it is that there are so few women, relatively speaking, in engineering and IT jobs?
I think it's a very good question. The number one is they're not encouraged to go there. You need to create an environment, a welcoming environment, to challenge a certain culture that kind of stops and discourages girls from going into STEM kind of studies. And that's why, for instance, GE spends a lot of time in earlier education in an education institution to encourage girls to consider STEM as a field of study. We just need to create the right environment for them.
Stay tuned for more from the 2017 Leading Women Summit after a short break. The second panel discussion for the day on the topic The Rise of the Machines, inspired by an article in the latest edition of Forbes Women Africa, was moderated by the magazine's editor, Metil Renuka.
From the unimaginable to the imaginable, we've actually slowly entered, maybe no longer in the realm of science fiction. This is reality. But my basic question to each one of you on the panel, will AI and robotics aid human beings, or will they replace us? And what are the economic possibilities of artificial intelligence in society, and what is the future workplace? So I'm going to direct that question, and I'm very proud of the fact that we have a very esteemed panel. In fact, I'm a digital dinosaur, so you've got to educate me as well. I'm going to direct this question to Dr. Rose. She's sitting right here next to me. Dr. Rose, you were the Managing Director of Consulting at Accenture, and I know you've just released a new tech report, which is very people-focused on future technology. And so tell us, what is you call it intelligent automation. So tell us in very few words, what is the workplace of the future?
Accenture releases the Technology Vision Report, and we've released it now for the past 3 years. And as we do this Technology Vision Report, we realize more and more that we have choices as human beings. Now that Pretoria boy, Elon Musk, who's making waves in the world, he's making a statement to the effect of artificial intelligence is going to be one of the biggest threats to human existence. And I can understand why he says that. Because people are very, very worried about what happens to jobs in the future. And I can also understand why they are worried about jobs in the future, because artificial intelligence is no longer that tin can on legs that we knew 50 years ago. Yes. It's not the artificial that's important anymore, it's the intelligence. And the intelligence is not just about the ability to do the tasks that humans do, which is the manual tasks or the dangerous tasks. But these artificial intelligence robots are now so intelligent that they can sense, so they can see, so they can sense around them. But not only can they sense, they can also comprehend. So they understand natural language. They can talk to you in natural language. That's why the previous panel was saying, when you are phoning into a call center, you don't know if you're talking to a human being or if you're talking to a robot.
That's right.
And then the third thing is that they can act. They can do activities. And so the reality is that these artificial intelligence robots are becoming more and more intelligent, that knowledge is no longer a commodity, knowledge is no longer the purview of humans, and that what is even more scary in the research that we've recently done is that 78% of executives And this is not just in Europe, this is even in Africa. There's very little difference between the two. 78% of them say that in the next 3 years they're going to use more and more artificial intelligence robots. So it's not the robot that is coming and giving in their CV to come and take your job. It's the executive, it's us in the room that is making the decision that we are going to use artificial intelligence robots more and more. So this is an absolute reality that this is going to happen, and jobs are going to be lost, but jobs will also be created. Right. What Accenture is saying is that the choice of how we are going to engage with technology is our choice, and it's a choice that we should take very seriously in a both responsive and a responsible way.
So I'm going to move to Fazlin Levy-Hassan, the Senior Manager of New Industries at IDC. So in my last conversation with another senior manager at IDC, I was told that there are new industries coming up in robotics, 3D printing, nanotechnology, and you work a lot with government. There's a lot of private-public partnerships. What are the new emerging growth areas according to you?
Hi, everyone. The IDC's focus is more on stimulating the South African economy. So our new industry focus is very different to what the global industry focus, and I'll touch on that. You are correct that this division was started 2 years ago, and we've shortlisted 7 areas that we're focusing on now. Not that there are other areas, and we will evolve over time. But my speciality is medical devices. We've got nanotechnology, as you mentioned, 3D printing, fuel cells, renewable energy inputs, gas beneficiation. So we are very focused on establishing new industry, because with new industries we can create employment, the entrepreneurship, and that's what we are looking at. I also sit on the Technology Innovation Investment Committee, and one of the challenges that always face us as parastatals is we are there to create employment, sustainable employment, but then there's always the question of technology versus job creation. Many years ago, we were afraid when we heard the word artificial intelligence and robotics, that we were going to be replaced by them, that there will be no jobs for us. I don't ever believe that that will be the case. I think that there's a choice, and there are certain aspects, for example, investments we've made, where it's just impossible for humans to create. It's either dangerous for them to their health, that we need robotics to come on board. I love the space. I'm excited about it. And the IDC, we're doing our little bit to facilitate that as well.
I would have come to you, Shami, but I don't want him to feel left out because he's the only man in the group, and I like the fact that you're wearing the Forbes red. Ryan Beach is the managing director of Ryan Robotics. You can even call him a robotics entrepreneur. And then he also told me earlier that he has 2 daughters, so he feels very much at home in this setting. So Ryan, you build robots,
Correct,
and
yeah.
So I'm the first question that comes to my mind is, are we capable in Africa? Do we have the skill sets and the people to build robots? The second question is, how much would building a robot for an industry or an industrial robotic arm actually cost? What are the cost implications of this?
Look, skills is definitely a problem in our country, but one of the reasons I started this company a couple of years ago was to actually develop those skills. There are definitely going to be job losses in this country due to automation, and we need to replace those jobs with jobs in the robotics industry, with people building robots, designing robots, maintaining robots. So we're on a big drive to actually build skills and to train people, and women as well.
Just one thing that comes to my mind now, this gender stereotyping, is there any of that in robotics? Because, from the 60s, well, I am old, yes, okay, in the 60s, I remember Rosie the robot in the Jetsons, if you remember the animation series. And why is it that, when you build a robot, a robot who has to be a receptionist, that has to be female? Do you see that kind of stereotyping there? I mean, we're going back 100 years if you're going into a technology era where women are, still stereotypes.
It is to even today, as you say, the robots, if you talk about Cortana or you talk about Siri or you talk about Amelia, these are all artificial intelligence robots who are assistants. they are classified as women. I also have a problem with that. But then the other flip side of the coin, I think about it and I say, women traditionally have higher emotional intelligence.
Of course.
And if you look at the kind of role that these assistants play in the interaction with human beings, because they are the digital spokesperson of the future, it's not surprising that they take a female persona because of the relationship focus, the empathy that women have, and the emotional intelligence, which I believe more and more is going to be an asset that we as humans are going to have to differentiate ourselves from machines. So I don't necessarily think it's such a bad thing.
It's not such a bad thing. Charmaine Houet, she's a Public Policy Director, Africa at Cisco, South Africa. My question to you is, you obviously work a lot with government and science and technology institutes. But now, going forward, should organizations customize their CSI to upskill workers to the eventuality of robotics and AI?
So a large portion of my job actually entails working with engineers. So Cisco's got one of the largest base of engineers, and a big portion of our portfolio actually entails robotics, AI, etc. So I think the difference where we come in is we put the intelligence in the network. So by the time everything else is built on top of that network, it should be intelligent enough to already detect and to start directing where things should go.
Sure.
And of course, I'm fully here with Dr. Rose, and I think also with Ryan, in terms of, for me, when we have this engagement around how machines should integrate with humans, I think whenever I have these discussions and I give the guidance and directions to engineers on the design, the last thing I'm thinking of is the gender it's going to serve. Rather, what we talk to government about is what is the problem and the challenge from a National Development Plan 2030 through to SA Connect 2020. We instead look at country problems and challenges that we think the robotic solution may start to contribute to. So, I think I was fortunate enough to spend the weekend with Minister Jeff Radebe and with Minister Naledi Pandor to actually discuss more intimately how does government start to engage with many of us in the room around digitization, all of which is a huge component, I think, of AI, of robotics, etc. And what was quite telling for me was that throughout the visit to Davos, the one thing that stuck with Minister Jeff Radebe of the presidency was meeting Sarah, which was, the socially aware robotic assistant. What he then took as government was the penny dropped with him that his narrative around 2030 has to change. It cannot be NDP that is 2030. It's the fact that these things happen. And I was listening to a lot of people say, it's coming. It's come.
Speaker Dr. Adriana Maria is one of 100 candidates in line for a one-way ticket to Mars as part of the Mars One mission, intended to take off in 2026.
I believe this is the most fascinating era of all that we are currently living in. It's an era of unprecedented change and development in science, technology, and on almost all spheres of life. And therefore, I believe that the key point is that the gap between the dream and the reality is shorter than ever before. That means we can harness these sort of technological developments and so on to achieve goals that have never been achieved before, and that many things that have been science fiction or the stuff of fiction in general are becoming reality in our lifetimes. Innovation, what is innovation? I think we need innovation to solve these problems, and innovation is more than just keeping up with current trends. It's actually thinking beyond current trends to anticipate what will happen next. So how do you do this? How do you do this as a society? How do you do this as a business? How do you do this as an individual? How do you prepare for a future that you're trying to imagine and don't know what it holds? How do you innovate for that? Well, I think exploration is a perfect idea. So putting yourself outside of your comfort zone, whether or not you volunteer to actually move to Mars. This can mean hanging out with a new group of people. This can mean taking a new job, moving to a new city. This can mean doing a business activity outside of your normal area of business. This could mean doing a course on Coursera on something you've never heard of. Once you're out of your comfort zone in a new environment, you find new problems and you grow because you find new solutions at the same time. So there are statistics that show that during the moon landing, during the Apollo missions, more students, or the number of students enrolling in science, technology, engineering, and maths degrees spiked like never before. Why? Because of the inspiration of seeing people on the moon and thinking, this is amazing.
This year's summit attracted a much larger audience and moved into a larger venue.
I think we were leveraging off the success from last year. The last year was our inaugural event, and it was only 100 women in the room. But this year, the kind of traction we got, the kind of interest the summit generated on social media, even days before the summit, and the fact that I was told this morning that the Leading Women Summit was the #1 trending topic on Twitter in South Africa. So all of this just speaks about this generation of women who are so tech savvy and who are so eager to use these tools, as I said, at their disposal to fast track whatever it is that they're doing. It is the fourth industrial revolution that we've covered in various panel discussions through the day. But how do we get to the bottom of it? How do we understand it better? To strategize, to come up with policy frameworks, to look at the economic possibilities of, for example, artificial intelligence and robotics that we spoke about all morning. So it's just it's been a great mix of panelists, speakers, and I think I really think, and I really hope that next year will be even bigger. And it will bring together several, it'll probably bring all of Africa together. This time it's been more or less centric on South Africa with a few participants from outside of South Africa, but this should ideally be replicated as an Africa event, if you ask me.